Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And let me just start by thanking you personally, as well as the committee staff, for your courtesy in rescheduling this hearing to today. As you noted, it was originally going to be yesterday. I very much appreciate it. It did allow me to make this trip to Turkey, which I'm happy to talk about. And Senator Cardin, thank you for referencing the best bilateral meeting I had during the week in New York at the UN General Assembly with Grover. By far the most informative, interesting session. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Cardin, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to discuss the civil war in Syria and its regional implications. Now in its sixth year, this civil war has destroyed the fabric of life in Syria. It's killed at least 400,000 people, triggered the worst humanitarian displacement crisis since World War II, put neighboring countries of first asylum under enormous pressure, exacerbated regional tensions, helped swell the ranks of violent extremist organizations, most notably Daesh and Al-Qaeda. The conflict continues to be fueled by patrons and proxies with very divergent interests and priorities at a time of unprecedented upheaval in the wider Middle East, as governments pursue new models of political rule and vie for regional influence. In short, the Syria conflict presents one of the most complex challenges we have faced. The United States is clear-eyed about our role and responsibility. The civil war in Syria is not about us, nor can it be solved solely by us, but it challenges our security and strategic interests and our moral values. So we are working to leverage our country's unique capacity to mobilize others to end the civil war and contend with its consequences, even as we lead the international coalition to counter and ultimately defeat Daesh. We're also working to facilitate aid to millions of Syrian civilians, both in Syria and outside of Syria, to try to reduce the human suffering the civil war has engendered. Our primary task is to defeat Daesh, which poses the most immediate threat to our citizens, to our country, to our allies and partners. We have built an international coalition with 67 partners. We devised a comprehensive strategy to attack Daesh at its core in Iraq and Syria, dismantle its foreign fighter financing and recruitment networks, stop its external operations, and confront its affiliates. We are aggressively implementing that strategy, and we are succeeding. Our comprehensive campaign is systematically liberating territory from Daesh and denying its sanctuaries, cutting off its financing, stemming the flow of foreign fighters, combating its narrative, allowing citizens to return home, gutting the twisted foundation on which Daesh's global ambitions rest. We've deprived Daesh of about 25% of the territory it once controlled in Syria and more than 50% of the territory it once controlled in Iraq. And we now face a moment of both strategic opportunity and urgency. The opportunity before us is to effectively eliminate Daesh's physical caliphate by taking back the last big pieces it holds: Mosul in Iraq and Raqqa and Dabiq in Syria. With support from the coalition, local forces are preparing to launch these operations in the period ahead. These battles will be hard, but the consequences to Daesh will be devastating, both practically and psychologically. But this opportunity is matched by urgency. As the noose around Daesh is tightening, we've seen them try to adapt by plotting or encouraging indiscriminate attacks in as many places as possible. This puts a premium on destroying Daesh's external operations network, especially in Raqqa, where many of these operations are plotted, planned, and directed. In Iraq, Mr. Chairman, 2 weeks ago, and then in Turkey this week, I held discussions with our partners on the campaign plan to liberate Mosul, Dabiq, and Raqqa. It requires extraordinary coordination, not just militarily, but also to ensure that we meet the humanitarian, stabilization, and governance needs of newly liberated territory. It will be this effort that ensures that Daesh, once defeated, stays defeated. And Senator Cardin, I think you're exactly right, that in a sense the harder questions are almost what follows the military defeat of Daesh in Iraq and certainly in Syria. Ultimately, we will not fully succeed in destroying Daesh until we resolve the civil war in Syria, which remains a powerful magnet for foreign terrorist organizations that thrive in the war's ungoverned spaces and draw strength from Assad's destruction of his own nation. The objectives and processes that we agreed to earlier this month with Russia were the right ones: a renewal of the cessation of hostilities, the immediate resumption of unhindered aid deliveries, the degradation of and focus on Daesh and Al-Qaeda in Syria, the grounding of the Syrian Air Force over civilian populations, the beginning of a Syrian-led negotiating track that can provide a pathway out of the conflict and make possible the restoration of a united, peaceful Syria. The actions of the Assad regime and Russia, aided and abetted by jihadist spoilers, now risk fundamentally undermining this initiative, destroying what was the best prospect for ending the civil war. The September 19 attack on a UN humanitarian aid convoy in Bogorum near Aleppo was unconscionable. It's been followed by the regime and Russia renewing a horrific offensive in Aleppo that includes the killing of hundreds of innocent civilians and apparently intentional attacks on hospitals, the water supply network, other civilian infrastructure. Yesterday, Mr. Chairman, Secretary Kerry informed the Foreign Minister of Russia that unless Russia takes immediate steps to end the assault on Aleppo and restore the cessation of hostilities, the United States will suspend U.S.-Russia bilateral engagement on Syria, including the establishment of the Joint Implementation Center. At President Obama's direction, we also are actively considering other options to advance our goal of ending the civil war and starting a political transition in Syria. We continue to maintain close links to the moderate opposition to support their viability. It's important, as always, to remember how this crisis in Syria began, not with barrel bombs or chlorine, but with peaceful protests of citizens who were calling for peaceful change. The humanitarian catastrophe that we bear witness to is a direct outgrowth of Assad's vengeance against his own people, and indeed the cost is rising every day for the region, for Europe, most of all for the Syrian people. We will continue to work with the coalition we built to defeat Daesh, and we will explore and, as appropriate, pursue every option to end the civil war in Syria and bring about the political transition that the Syrian people want and deserve. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.